Hey everyone. This is the first time I'm doing this on the podcast, but I just got off of the call with Khalid, who is my guest on this episode, and I wanted to just put a little bit of context at the beginning of the show so you know what you're about to listen to. And a lot of my favorite podcasts do this, and I thought I'd give it a try here because the episode you're about to listen to is pretty in depth. It's one of the longer episodes that we've done. And quite honestly, it is so packed with value that I want to make sure that you understand what you're getting into because we're going to go deep. And the way that this episode goes is that Khalid is one of the foremost authorities on the world of conversion optimization. And if you don't know what that is, that's fine, because in the beginning of this episode, we go through and we talk a lot about what conversion optimization actually is. And we really go through the basics of it, because after we go through the basics, we get a little bit deeper into it and we explore some of the frameworks that Khalid and his partner Ayat came up with. And the way that they explain these things and the way that they frame them all is going to be extremely helpful for you as you look at your own website, you look at your own social media marketing, the way you look at everything, your email marketing, your print advertisements. This concept may be foreign to you right now before you listen to this episode, but I assure you by the end of this episode, you're going to get a lot out of this. That's my promise to you. And if you don't, find me on Twitter @jgibbard and you tell me that I am full of it. But I have a pretty good idea that by the end of this episode, you are going to be really glad you listened to it and you're going to tell someone else about it. So without further ado, here's the episode.
This is the True Voice Media Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Gibbard. Back in 2011, I started a social business agency called True Voice Media. In 2013, I launched this podcast because my audience told me that they wanted to learn more about how social media could help them grow their business, but they wanted it to be interesting and without all the standard social media hype and BS. Just someone who will give it to them straight with honest, simple strategies that they can use today. If you're a new listener and that sounds like what you want too, listen to this episode, and if you love it, subscribe to our show. We'd love to have you on board. So without further ado, let's get started.
Hey everyone, I just want to take a moment out to thank one of the partners that we have that makes this show possible, WP Engine. Back in the days of dial-up, people would wait for websites to load, but attention spans are shorter than ever. Did you know that the average attention span has dropped to a mere 8 seconds? And for reference, the average attention span of a goldfish is only 9 seconds. So you only have a short period of time to hook people on your website, and if half that time is spent waiting for the page to load, you are sure to lose customers. Beyond that, what do you do when your website goes down? Who do you call? Well, today's best businesses are running websites that load quickly and have virtually no downtime. In the event something does go wrong, the best businesses are back up and running in no time. That's why the best businesses trust WP Engine for hosting. If you're running a WordPress site like nearly 20% of the entire web, you owe it to yourself to upgrade your hosting to WP Engine. It's fast, it's secure, and their support is amazing. We use WP Engine at True Voice Media, and over the next 18 months, we're planning to move every single one of our sites to WP Engine. That's how good it is. Right now, WP Engine is offering 2 months free when you prepay for the entire year. And when you get to the site, look along the top of the page for additional discounts and offers. Go to truevoicmedia.com/hosting to learn more about the best damn WordPress hosting on the web. This is episode 47. That's a 4 followed by a 7, and I am here with Khalid Saleh. And this is a major get on the show because we're going to talk about something that I know most of you don't have a damn clue about. And I know that because I've spoken with a lot of you listeners, and I've spoken with a lot of prospects, and I've spoken with friends, and I've spoken with partners, and I know that what we're about to get into is something that you all need a little lesson on, and I brought in the foremost authority on it. So Khalid, do me a favor. Tell people who you are and why you're on the show today.
Very good. Well, first, thank you for having me. So I'm the CEO of Invesp. We are a conversion optimization software and services company. We started doing conversion optimization back in 2006 before anybody heard of it. We're actually the second company in the US to do conversion optimization. And what we do is we come into websites and we help them increase sales, leads, whatever the goal of the website is. Lots of times with online marketing, the focus is on driving more eyeballs, more visitors to the website. But eventually, website owners, operators, marketing teams discover that it doesn't really matter how many visitors are coming to your website if they are not converting, if they are not turning from a website visitor into a customer or to a lead or a subscriber.
So I was actually just going to ask you as sort of a starting point, and what I'd like to do in the way I lay this out, and this is really for the benefit of the listener right now, as well as just to let you know how I'd like to do this, is I want to start with really defining the world of conversion optimization. I want to define the different things that make up a conversion. I want to talk about funnels and how to actually go about thinking about your website and a couple different examples so that we can really sink our teeth into it. So one of the things I was going to ask you to start with before we go into kind of getting deeper into it is, can you just define a couple basic examples of what a conversion actually is?
Very good. So this will depend on the type of website that you have. I was sitting with a friend yesterday, and he's like, "Hey guys, he has about 650,000 visitors to his website. So really, traffic-wise, visitors-wise, it's really great." And he looked at me. He said, "Well, why don't you help me?" So I looked at him and I told him, well, what's the goal from the website? He runs a news website. Mm-hmm. And really the first question about conversion optimization, it is, what's the goal that you are trying to achieve from the website? So sometimes it's very easy to answer. If you're an e-commerce website, most likely you are trying to get sales from your website. If you are a lead generation type website, let's say you're running a consulting type firm, a lawn service, something like that. So the goal from having the website is for people to either fill out a form or fill out a form or pick up a phone and call you. So that's when a conversion happens. And the way we track that is very simple. How many visitors are you getting per month, and how many conversions, whatever the conversion action is, what's that number, and we divide the two. So let's say you're an e-commerce website and you get 1,000 visitors and you're getting 100 orders, so your conversion rate is 10%. If you're a lead generation type website and you're getting 10,000 visitors, but you're only getting 500 leads, so your conversion rate is 5%. And conversion optimization focuses on working with you, really trying to figure out, okay, so how do we go from that 10%, 5%, 1% to a double digit? How do you increase that conversion rate for the websites?
Okay, good. So basically it again starts with goals, and that's good because when we work with clients, we're always starting with goals as well. So we're already speaking the same language. And some of the ones that you had brought up were, it could be that you're trying to drive leads. So it could be contact form submissions could be the conversion. If you're trying to sell products, you're an e-commerce site, it's obviously by people purchasing things. And if you're a news site, it could just be email subscribers or something like that. Yep. So basically a conversion, for all of you listening who don't understand what a conversion is, it's basically somebody accomplishing the goal that you've set out for them to achieve.
Definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
So,
and that's really what you want to think about. It's like, what's the goal from the website? What are you trying to get visitors to do? Even if, sometimes people say, well, I'm not trying, we don't have a goal. Well, then you need to stop and think. Because even if you just have a blog, ultimately, maybe your goal is to get subscribers. So you want that, either RSS subscribers or email subscribers. But there should be a goal, unless you're just doing it for the sake of entertainment and you don't care, what the world thinks of your websites.
Mm-hmm. And in that case, that's a conversation for a whole different type of audience. And obviously, you can't help someone who doesn't have anything they need help with if it's just a hobby. So Definitely. The conversion is you want someone to take some sort of an action that fulfills on the goal that you have for the site. So first question that jumps to my mind when we talk about this is, what happens when there's multiple things you might want them to do? Let's say you have an e-commerce site, but you're also looking to increase subscribers to your newsletter where you can possibly sell through your email. Or maybe you want to get people to like you on Facebook or like you on Twitter. Is that a situation where perhaps the business is thinking about conversions in the wrong way because these other smaller conversions are getting in the way of the bigger one? Or is there a way where you can set it up so that you can actually achieve optimization around each of these conversions?
So there are two things that you want to think about when it comes to the question, and it's a really great question because this is a problem that many businesses deal with. It is very typical for any website to have multiple conversion goals. If I look at our website, ultimately we run consulting services. We also offer software, and we have a blog. So these goals compete with each other. What a business owner needs to do, what a marketing team needs to do, is really figure out what is my primary conversion goal for the website. So it might be that's, I need to get leads. That's the primary conversion goal. And my secondary conversion goals might be getting, blog subscribers, getting email subscribers, maybe, getting people to follow us on social media. So that's kind of at a very high level. You define those goals for your website. Then you start breaking it down by page. So for each page, you start thinking, okay, so what is the primary conversion goal for this page? And what are the secondary conversion goals? So on a home page, my primary conversion goal might be, just to navigate visitors from the home page to our service pages. Or from an e-commerce website, it's from my, taking people from the home page to the category pages. When you figure out that primary conversion goal, then all the elements, everything on the page really should support that primary conversion goal. Secondary conversion goals should not compete with it. You don't want to confuse visitors where, hey, we have 5 different goals and here they are and they're all next to each other. The more options you present to visitors, the more you confuse them. And as a result, it will be less conversions for you.
Okay, so I want to take where we just went to, and I want to scale it back a little bit just in case we lost anybody along the way. So what I want to do now is just back up and talk real quickly, if you could. Who does this work best for? Who of the people that are listening right now that may be thinking, I don't know if this is for me or this is too complex or whatever, who can benefit from conversion optimization on their site?
Every website that is getting visitors can benefit from conversion optimization because ultimately conversion optimization is about helping you achieve the goals that you want from your website. If you have a website and there's ultimately a goal, whether it's sales, leads, subscriptions, whatever it is, conversion optimization is about helping you achieve that goal. Now, this can vary. If you have a website with 1 million visitors, it's a lot different than a website that's just starting out. So how deep you delve into conversion optimization will vary, but I think everybody will benefit from it and can see results from it.
Excellent. So you hear that? Any of you out there that are listening right now and got this far into it and started to get confused or didn't know if it was for you, keep paying attention because we're actually going to go through the entire process in this episode. And I'm also going to have Khalid give a few very simple tips of things that you can do to, even if you don't engage a firm like Invest and you just do a few little things, we're going to give you some tips for how to do that. So make sure you pay attention for the rest of the episode. So Khalid, I want to ask you if you can give a few quick tips for kind of the small business, the solopreneur, the individual person who built their own WordPress website and they're looking at it and they're saying, you know what, I'm just not getting anything out of this. Maybe they know what their goal is. Let's say they're trying to generate leads or they're trying to generate email subscribers. Do you have any quick, easy tips of things that people can look for, ways of thinking about their site where they can get better results from it?
So I'll give the easiest tip that we have. If you look at your homepage and look at the title of the homepage, what title are you using? Are you, we still see websites in 2016 that are saying, welcome, thank you for visiting us. Well, that doesn't really play well for the visitor who's looking. It's like, welcome, yes, hi, really you want to think about the visitor. What is the benefit that the visitor is going to gain from doing business with you? Let's say you're an online marketing firm. Well,
I happen to know one.
There you go. Let's say you run and you have social media services. Well, so what's the goal from having social media services that your clients will receive? Well, maybe the headline that you'll use on your page will say generate more sales, generate more engagement using social media, and we will help you do that. That is a lot more powerful than I'm taking the other extreme end where welcome, we offer social media services, correct? Which title you think resonates better with visitors? Simple changes like that can actually make a huge impact because the visitor sees it and he says, oh yeah, you put your fingers on a problem that I'm dealing with and I really want you to help me solve it.
So let me ask you this, because when I'm talking with a client, one of the examples that I always give, and I think it's really clever, but I'm curious what you think about this. I always like to say that if I were to visit a website, the best thing for me to see when I show up is obviously, like you described, it's not welcome, hey, how are you? Here's what we offer. But I always say, if I were to show up on a site and it says, are you a 35-year-old single white male living in Old City, Philadelphia, and it had two buttons, yes or no, that would be probably one of the most engaging first things that they could put, because they know who I am. And maybe if they took it a step further and said, and you're looking to aggressively grow your business in the next 6 months, I would click yes on that day in, day out. Now, in terms of making a statement versus a question, do you have any thoughts on whether or not you talk about what we offer you or who you are and how we help that person? Is there one that you see as better than the other?
In all honesty, both really work well. Asking a question sometimes engages visitors. I'm the kind of person who is a lot more engaged by questions. Are you this? And it is like, you're asking the visitor to self-identify. He is telling you really a lot of information about themselves. Yes, I am white, male, 35 to 45, correct? And you can benefit tremendously from that. Even let's say, you're a marketing firm, and I'll go back to that example. Are you a small business that's just looking, for help with your social media, or are you an enterprise that is an enterprise company that's looking to grow your online business? So by them, having to answer, they're actually providing you as a business owner a lot of information so you can tailor your message. My message for, the white male who is 35 to 45 is going to be different than maybe the female who is 20 to 30 if I'm servicing both markets. So I can create different pages based, on their answer of yes and no.
Got it. Yeah, perfect. So I love giving that example all the time to clients because I think it perfectly illustrates in a very very overboard way, because I'm making it so specific that I'm obviously talking directly to me. But most clients, when I look at their website and I see the homepage, it is often that sort of like welcome, yada yada, and it's kind of a wasted opportunity, because when somebody lands on that page, you have 7 seconds or less to communicate to them what it is that you do and capture their attention. So your best advice, not best advice, but I mean at least your simplest, most straightforward advice to start with is, what are you saying when somebody arrives?
Exactly. And let me just kind of mention a couple of things, by the way, over here. Our research back in 2009, and I had to go back and remember it, showed that it takes a visitor less than 2 seconds, just about 2 seconds, to really decide whether they trust the website or not. They look at it, they glance, they look at the headline, and they make a mental decision. Do I trust this website? Do I want to stay on it or not? Nowadays, in 2015, that's the last time we ran the study, it takes less than half a second, which is really scary.
That is
They're
scary.
judging the whole business. It's just like by looking, just like, and I've decided I'm leaving or I'm staying. So you have to pay very close attention to every little detail, from that headline to even something else that people want to think about is having a professionally a nice designed website. And nowadays, with all the different templates that are available, it should be very easy for any business to really have a nicely designed website that sends subconscious signal that you can trust me, I am trustworthy, as opposed to, you look at the website and it's like, hey, I don't know where these colors are coming from. Not sure if I'm at the right place. Goodbye and good luck.
Let me ask you this. I want to dig into this a little bit deeper, and I know we want to get to talking about specifically how conversion optimization works, but I want to talk to you a little bit about that, how the judgment of the site has shrunk to about a half a second. What do you think that's from? Because what I would kind of put out there as my thought is that, it's become so much easier to create a good-looking website that bad-looking websites immediately turn us off. But do you think there's going to come a point where good-looking websites and good graphics and all that becomes so easy that then it starts to shift in the other direction, that because everything begins to look the same and high polished, that there's some other factor that's going to come into play? Or is it something else that I'm not thinking of? What do you think is causing that to go from 2 seconds to a half a second? What's making it happen?
We're looking at lots of studies trying to explain. There has been a lot of research talking about just the amount of advertising messages that any person of us, especially living in the US, the number of advertising messages that we see per day. I was just looking also at recent studies showing that an average human makes close to 35,000 decisions in a single day.
Is that really 35,000? And people wonder why I just want to wear a black t-shirt and jeans every day. I'm like, I already make a lot of decisions, but I had no idea it was close to that many.
It's crazy because I think I didn't actually need to do the math and divide it by the number of seconds and just kind of figure out how many decisions we're making per second.
Seriously.
And that's the reason you have somebody like President Obama who replies to emails with 3 words, agree, disagree, discuss. Or you have Steve Jobs that wears, or Mike Zuckerberg, where they wear the same clothes. It's like, okay, one less area that I have to think about, and move on to the next decision. Same thing applies to a website. Where Google makes so many websites, whether it's organic or paid traffic. There are just so many options. You're bombarded with social media messages, and people are just trying to find what they're looking for very, very quickly. And if you're not able to anticipate the information that the visitor needs in order for them to trust you and say, you know what, okay, yeah, they have what I'm looking for, then you're going to lose that visitor and you're going to lose him very quickly.
So let me ask you this, and hopefully this will lead us down to the path where we can start to talk about how conversion optimization works. But there's this idea of the funnel. It's an old idea, sales funnel, marketing funnel, the whole thing. And a lot of people have recently taken issue with it. And in the conversation around conversion optimization, we're looking to get people to take the action we want them to take, but at the same time, we have people at various various parts of the buying cycle where they're kind of making their assessment. Maybe they don't know about you, so then they become aware of you, and maybe they just start doing some more research, and then maybe they're in the phase of buying. At what point in that funnel are you most interested in applying the conversion optimization methodology and way of looking at things, or is it something that you have to think about at all levels? And then even one step further, sorry not to convolute this question, but is the funnel still a valid idea?
So let me start with the second question, and then we'll go to the first part.
Okay.
So what I tell people is, yes, we all have this big funnel, So if I have a e-commerce website, my funnel is ultimately ends up with somebody placing an order on my website. If I have a lead gen type website, somebody filling out a contact form. Regardless of the type of website, there's this big funnel. But in order for us to get to that big yes, somebody actually clicking on the final step and they give you their credit card information, in order for me to get to that big yes, a macro conversion, somebody actually handed you the information that you want or placed the order, the visitor must go through a series of smaller yeses, smaller or what we call micro funnels. What does that mean? Well, in order for me to get to, to the order confirmation on an e-commerce website, I actually have to go through many, many steps. I've gotten an email from you. I clicked from the email maybe to your product page. I looked at the product page and then I clicked from the product page to the basket, from the basket to the first step of the checkout, so on and so forth. And every single one of those smaller funnels that you have to think about it, analyze it, and really optimize it for the mind of the visitor. Give you a good example. Email. People don't think of a regular email that I'm sending out to my email list as a funnel. They're like, well, I just sent an email. However, if you think about it, for me as somebody who receives the email, I get an email. I look at the sender. I look at the subject line. That's the start of the funnel. I click on the email. Now I'm reading the body of the email, and as my eyes are moving, I'm actually moving from one section to the next. There's a small micro funnel. I click from the email. You have a link on the email that takes me to your website. That's a conversion for that small funnel. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So really what you're saying is, and I think this is helpful because when you say conversion optimization out in the general world, anybody that knows anything about it at the very basic level is thinking, we're talking about shopping cart abandonment. We're talking about, do I make the button green or red to increase conversions by a percentage? Do I change it from sign up or get it free? All that sort of stuff. So they're thinking about those sort of things, and it's always exclusively website driven. But what you're saying is that conversion optimization is really more of a mindset that takes part in any part of your marketing decisions. So whether they're talking about an email that you're sending out, you're looking at the headline, you're looking at all those different things, or it could be a social media post. Any of those can be optimized to increase the conversion and get you what you want.
Ultimately, any action that you take, any marketing action, there is a goal for it. And conversion optimization is about increasing, the effectiveness of that action. I'm posting something on social media. Well, I want people maybe to retweet it or to share it, or to comment. So that's the goal. So, well, how do I get to that goal? Well, maybe I need to do steps 1, 2, 3, 4, thinking about my target customer from this, post or action, and how do I get them to take the action that I want them to take?
So So what you're saying is if we believe that the funnel is still a relevant way of thinking about things, and we have this sort of like awareness, interest, desire, and action, right? The AIDA funnel, let's say. At any of those points, if you're trying to gain awareness with someone, there is a conversion optimization technique that you can apply to it, or a way of looking at it where you can gain more awareness, or in the interest phase where you can generate more interest. And then desire and action, in those where somebody either submits their info as a lead or they may take the action to buy. In each of those areas, you're saying that there's an opportunity to potentially improve that action.
Definitely. So if you think about that, and the question that you asked, like, well, so people that land on your website, not everybody is ready to take an action. Studies have shown that only 20% of the visitors that click on your website are actually in that action stage. Yes, I'm ready to buy a book. I know the exact book, and I'm gonna buy it from you. So I'm in that action stage. Or you know what? I'm looking for that social media marketing company, and I've already selected you. Now I'm just coming to your website to fill out the contact form. Well, that's 20% of the visitors. The challenge is the remaining 80% who are still early on. You know what? I'm not sure if I want to buy a book about social media, for example, or I'm not sure if I want to, hire this company. I'm evaluating alternatives. I'm maybe just browsing. So I'm in the different stages. And what you need to do as somebody who runs a website, a marketing professional, somebody who's really trying to get more out of his marketing is to think about different people coming in different stages and really provide them with the information that they need so we can move them up to the next stage.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's, we've covered the basics of it. I want to talk to you about the methodologies and the theories and the frameworks that you have developed to think about this in the right way. So I want you to take me through, at this point in our conversation, I'd really just like to kind of turn it over to you and explain to me these elements of conversion optimization. You've been in this for a while. Break it down for me. How does this work? How do we go about optimizing a site for conversions?
Very good. So the way you want to do it, first you have a website. So one of the first questions that you want to ask, well, where should I start? Should I start on the home page? Should I start on services pages? If I'm an e-commerce website, my product pages or checkouts, or that's a very important question that you want to be able to answer, because if you have unlimited time, unlimited resources, unlimited budget, well, yeah, heck, go and analyze as much as you like. But most of us are limited really in what they deal with. So you want to focus and you want to look at your analytics. You want to create all these different funnels, just like we talked about, and track what areas of the website are really weak and leaking out visitors, and what can I fix. So that's one thing. So you do your analysis and you say, what, our homepage, where 70% of our visitors that come to the homepage leave right away without ever navigating to a second page. So what do we fix on the homepage or on the product page or on the, maybe the contact us page? That's where we develop what we call the conversion framework methodology. Now, what this methodology tells you is there are actually 7 elements that come into play, whether somebody is persuaded to stay on your website, to take the action you want them to take on the page, or whether they decide, what, I'm done, I'm leaving. Let me break those 7 elements, and we break them into 2 groups. So there's what we call website-centric factors, and there's another group that's called visitor-centric factors. And let's go through these. Website-centric factors are the elements that you control with the website. You have full control as a website operator. So those elements include trust. If I don't trust you, if you don't send me the right trust signals, I'm gonna leave. So if you have, let's say, Better Business Bureau, if you have some really an amazing, you've been mentioned in magazines, you've appeared in media, you want to mention it because that builds your credibility and your trust. So that's the first element of website-centric factors. Something else is you want to be aware of what we call FUDs, fears, uncertainties, and doubts, because we all have them as we navigate from one website to the next. I land on a website from a Google search and I'm thinking to myself, is this the right place? Do they offer what I'm looking for? Can I trust them or not? So if you think about it, FUDs are the complete opposite of trust elements. I come into a website and you're asking me for my email address, but you're not assuring me that you're not going to be selling my email address or sending me spam. So I'm saying, you know what, I'm not going to hand you over my email address.
So let me pause you
So
right
how-
there. So you said so far we've got trust and we've got FUDs. So
Yep.
trust could be testimonials, it could be social proof that you've appeared in the New York Times, it could be any number of different things that signal that you're the real deal, that you have legitimacy, that you can that you're not a fly-by-night operation, etc. So that's the one side. And the other side, you have those things that immediately turn people off and give them either fear, uncertainty, or what's D again? Fear,
Doubts. The
doubts. Okay.
Uh,
So it could be, that you're overly aggressive. So you're trying to get their credit card information. You're just signaling them that, like, even if you're trusted and you've been in the New York Times or whatever, if you're asking them to buy too quickly, you could cause an arousal of that fear state in them or that uncertainty. Or perhaps the clients that you've worked with, maybe you have conflicting things in the trust, that maybe you've been featured in top publications or whatever, but the clients you've worked with are like Joe's Pizza Shack or something like down the street. So what you're looking for is a balance between those, where you're giving signals that you should be trusted and you're reducing as many signals of uncertainty or fear as possible, correct?
Very, very well put. I think you put it perfectly.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure that I understood it as well.
Very good. Excellent. So those are kind of the first two elements of website-centric factors. The other elements are what we call, and those two other elements, they help you deal with FUDs. Those two elements are engagement. So the more engaging your website is, the less the fears and the uncertainty and the doubts that visitors will have. Well, how do I create an engaging website? That really would depend tremendously on the type of website you have. But let's say let's say you have a consulting business. Well, a really nicely engaging website is when you offer to educate your visitors. So you're not only asking them for their information, you're not always telling them, well, hire me, hire me, hire me. As a matter of fact, you're sharing your knowledge. So you become an authority in their mind. That also increases your trust. But they say, you know what? I benefited from this website, and I'm going to bookmark it, and I'm going to refer a friend and a colleague to it. That increases engagement. And the more engaging your website is, the higher the chances of converting website visitors.
Cool. So let's pause there for a minute too, because engagement is a loaded word in the social media world. So I want to make sure that I'm really understanding your definition of the word engagement. So I get trust, I get FUD. I want to talk a little bit about engagement. So engagement can be a lot of things. So to engage someone could be that they're currently inactive and you do something to kind of shake them up and get them to interact with you in some way. So that's one thing. The other is that you can be listening to what they say, create content for them, and the interplay between that back and forth, that conversation could be engagement. When you think of engagement, what exactly do you mean by that? And so that anybody that's listening to this can really get a sense of what that means on their website for what they do.
So for every website, we have what we call a ladder of engagement. I'll give you kind of the best example for a ladder of engagement is, kind of the political campaign, especially now we're in election season. So an engagement for a political campaign first was for you to follow maybe the Twitter account of one of the candidates. That's the first step. We engaged you. The second level of engagement, you retweeted. The third level of engagement, we brought you to our website. The fourth level of engagement, we asked you for a small donation, maybe $5. The next level of engagement, maybe you can host a political gathering at your house. So at any point in time, you want to think about your visitors and how do I move them up? You cannot have somebody right away, who just followed you on Twitter to say, hey, by the way, can you host a political meetup at your house? And be like, hey, I just followed you on Twitter. You're asking for too much. But if you take the visitor from one level of commitment to the next, then you'll have a much higher level of engagement, a community really around your website.
Mm-hmm. And I'd imagine that the trust side of things really helps to move people up that engagement ladder. So part of what gets you to those deeper levels of engagement and those bigger asks, such as hosting a political gathering at your house or something, is that increased level of trust with the person you're speaking with.
Exactly. So, and I'll give another example. Turning somebody who came to an e-commerce website from, I came in, I placed an order, and goodbye and good luck. It's a one-time transaction. That's one level of engagement, correct? Mm-hmm. A whole other level of engagement is when they become an evangelist. They are so madly in love with your service, your product, your website, that they're actually talking about it. And you have brand ambassadors, and you're not paying them any money, but they're always saying, hey, by the way, have you seen this really cool product? I bought it from this website. You really should go and check them out. That's moving somebody through the ladder of engagement from a regular visitor into a customer, into a community member, into an evangelist.
So let me ask you one more question about engagement. What would you say is what are some of the keys in the early stages to get people over the hump of doing nothing? Because I often hear the word engagement thrown around a lot in the social media world, and I for one believe that most customers, they don't really want to be engaged by a brand until they choose that they want to be engaged by, or they want to themselves engage the brand. So they want to be, I guess, re-engaged with the brand. But I think very rarely does somebody want, I'm a huge fan of Puma, but it would be really weird if they just reached out to me and they were like, hey, how's your day? I'd be like, that's very strange. I wasn't, I wear Puma every day, but it's kind of weird for you to reach out to me. So, some of those early stages of engagement, website or social or wherever you're thinking about it, what are some of those things that you look for to kind of get the ball rolling?
So one of the most difficult things when it comes to engagement is going from the 0 to 1, kind of that initial engagement. The minute you move the needle, that very first step, then going from 1 to 2, 2 to 3 is actually a lot easier. Mm-hmm. The challenge is lots of times with marketing and lots of times with social media, people are not really thinking about this ladder of engagement. So they throw things left and right. It's like, we'll just throw things, at the wall and hope something will stick. If you actually segment your target markets, your social media following, to say, what, I'm going to show, let's say you're running a specific ad on Twitter or on Facebook. The goal from this ad is to actually get people to do that initial engagement with us. Maybe initially just to download an ebook. So I'm offering them something for free. Maybe I'm offering them just a coupon. So it's all about arousing that interest of the potential visitor, to the potential person who's going to engage you. How do I actually capture their interest? And the minute they give you that first green light, here's my email. Here I followed you on Twitter. Here I liked your Facebook page. Great. Because now you need to think about, okay, what is the next action that I want them to take? Again, think about the ladder of engagement. Don't ask them for step number 4 if they just took the first step. We want to take them slowly from one step to the next.
So in those beginning stages, it sounds like you're saying, it's things like incentives, or it's things like pieces of strong information that might arouse curiosity. Are those some of the things that you think are good starting points for that engagement?
Definitely. I think those do very, very well because also those deal with potential customers or target markets who are early in the process, and it's a way to show them, what, I am sharing, I am giving you knowledge, I'm actually contributing, I'm helping you. Eventually, I will ask for your help, and I'm going to ask you to be committed and be part of my tribe. But initially, I'm going to provide you with value, and I'm going to show you the value that I can provide, so you become part of our community, and we engage each other and benefit from that relationship.
I love this framework, and I got to tell you, if the thing I'm going to pull out, and we still have a little bit of episode left to go here, but I am definitely walking away with this idea of the ladder of engagement, because I think what it does is it adds some nuance to this idea of engagement, that it's not this blanket thing where someone's either engaged or unengaged. It's that there's stages to it, and especially when you take it from the approach of somebody who's thinking about conversion optimization, if your goal of this engagement is eventually get them to buy, there are stages to that, and the beginning of that might not have anything to do with buying, but rather educating or incenting. So I really love this term, ladder of engagement, and I'm going to be keeping that one. I will always reference you, and maybe I'll send you a nickel for every 3 times I use it or something. That's a good deal.
That sounds like a deal.
All right, cool. Let's continue. So you've given us 2 website-centric, the trust and FUD, and you've given us the visitor-centric and engagement. What comes next?
So let's go back to the website-centric. We talked about trust, FUDs, and engagement. The last element under website-centric factors is incentives.
Oh, okay, so I have this backwards. So engagement goes under website-centric, and so does incentives.
Trust, yes, and trust and FUDs. So until now, we only talked about the website-centric factors.
Okay, cool.
So,
I had miscategorized. Got it.
Oh, no worries. So lots of times when I say incentives, people are always thinking to themselves, well, it's about discounts, so it's about e-commerce. Not really. Incentives is about incentivizing a visitor who engaged you, who came to your website, about acting right now, based on the stage that they're at. What does that, how does that apply? So if you're an e-commerce website, price-based incentives, we're offering a discount, 10%, 20%. That makes perfect sense. However, think about other types of incentives. There are two kinds. There's what we call scarcity incentives, and then there's urgency. Scarcity is when I say, we only have 5 more books available, or, you can act right now and you'll receive a signed copy of our book. However, we just need your email. We're making this special report available for next 24 hours only. Subscribe to our email list. So using urgency and scarcity works really well in incentivizing a visitor to actually convert on your website.
Excellent. I love both of those. And are you familiar with, there's a book by Robert Cialdini called Influence. And in that, one of the weapons of influence is scarcity. So I was wondering have you read that, and has that played a part in some of the ways that you've thought about these tactics for incentives and engagement and all those sort of things?
Definitely. I mean, what you want to think about, the beauty of scarcity is you're having your website visitors compete against each other. Perfect example is, you have flash sale websites, correct? So I only have 10 items of this particular, 10 stock, 10 items of this particular item in stock. And the more people are buying, the less stock is available. So the next visitor sees oh, well, there's 9 items left. There's 8 items left. Let me buy very quickly. So the visitors are competing against each other, and you as a retailer, you're benefiting. Same thing could apply if you have an ebook. We're only going to make 10 downloads available. And after the 10th download, it's not going to be available. Maybe it's going to be available next month, maybe not ever. So you really need to act right now. Give us your email, get the download of that book.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay, cool. Scarcity, urgency. Are there any other incentives that you think are work really, really well?
Those are the 3 categories: price-based incentives, urgency-based incentives, and scarcity-based incentives. And of course, they manifest themselves in so many different ways. I always tell people whenever we talk about incentives, go to Orbitz, for example. Orbitz is a perfect example because they use urgency and scarcity. When you're buying an airline tickets, only 2 seats available. However, if you want to buy next weekend, you're going to have this discounted price. So they use, the concept of incentives really tremendously well on their sites.
Let me ask you about one more, because I'm looking at your 3 here and I feel like one's missing.
Tell me.
Here's my offer. Value-based incentives. So you said price-based incentives, which I think is an interesting one and I think makes perfect sense, but I think there's value-based incentives. So for instance, and I could be wrong, and maybe this folds into one of your things, but on my website, when you sign up for my email list, I give you the complete and essential social strategy framework. And I just give that white paper way that we put together, and it defines the 3 pillars of social media success. It talks about the 5 elements of social, and it's got a number of other different frameworks in there that are super helpful, and we give that away as part of signing up. And that's a value add. Is that something that you think fits into the price incentives the way that you're thinking about it, or did I just invent a brand new category for you?
Well, so we don't think so what you mentioned actually plays into 2 other elements, but doesn't play into incentives, and we'll talk about that. So what you said, builds trust and credibility, correct? It's wow, I'm getting all of this, and also builds engagement, correct?
Yep.
But incentives, the best way to explain incentives, when I come to your website and I look at this offer, does the visitor think, well, I can come next week and I'll find the same offer on the same place on the website?
Got it.
Or doesn't he? So if he thinks, oh, I really need to act right now because this might not be there tomorrow, then you've incentivized the visitor to act. If he thinks, okay, well, next week is going to be here and I'm just going to give him my email, that's when you did not play the game of incentives.
So if I were to then change my incentive on it, if you sign up within the next 2 weeks for our email list, you'll get our white paper absolutely free. Then I would be giving it more of an incentive, whereas right now I'm using it more in the trust and credibility side of things and to create engagement.
Exactly. There you go.
Okay. Makes more sense. So I'm just miscategorizing it. That's all.
There you go.
Within this framework. That makes sense. Okay, cool. Got it. Makes more sense. I thought I just invented something. I was so excited. I was going to have you put me on payroll.
Hey, and I got excited. I'm we're always looking for ways to learn something new, and I'm like, oh, it's something new.
Yeah, no, I'm into it because I love to create frameworks as ways of explaining things, and I have this one that I call the 5 components or the 5 elements of social. I think I even just did the 5 functions of social, and I consistently ask people to either prove it wrong, just prove it, add something to it, say that something isn't right. Because I really want it to be airtight, and so far nobody said anything about it that has dissuaded me from it. So I was really hoping that I was able to add something, but it's fine. Okay, so we've gone through.
Sorry, let me just say one
Yeah.
thing over here. The beauty of frameworks is they give you a process that you can apply to anything.
Yep.
I would say, like, you can find best practices and tactics that you can do, but really a framework holds, like, the test of time. You can always, of course, develop it and add more to it, and you benefit from it. But really, frameworks is the way to go.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that. We work off of frameworks, and it just makes things easier to explain too, because frameworks typically can be explained visually.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got our website centric components. We've got
Factors.
trust factors. We've got trust. We've got FUD. We've got incentives. We've got engagement.
Okay, so now we're going to move to the visitor-centric factors. So those are the elements that impact whether a visitor is going to convert or not convert, persuaded to convert on your website or not. But those are within the domain of the visitor. He has a lot more control over these. The first one is what we call the persona temperament. So this has been studied since the time of Aristotle. Different people have different persona, different temperaments. And there are four main categories now. Psychologists have written tremendously about this, especially in the 1920s, 1950s. But we categorize that people are fall into four different categories. They're either very spontaneous. I'm very spontaneous. I shop very quickly, credit card in hand, ready to buy. And I regret my purchase decision also very quickly. And we're about 35% of the population. Now, you compare the spontaneous type persona to the logical, or what we call methodical type persona. Methodicals are very, they question everything. They read every little detail on the website. So if I'm looking at a social media marketing company, so what's your process? Who did you work with? They're asking lots of questions. And they're about 45% of the population. Two kind of completely different types of personas. And your copy needs to appeal to them. Your design needs to appeal to them. You need to think about them. Then there's a third type of persona is what we call the caring. They're really more focused on the human emotion. So tell me, how many clients did you have last year, and were they happy with you? And let me read your About Us page. Let me read a little bit more. Maybe I can look at the pictures of the founders of the company. So they're a lot more engaged with your company, with your business at an emotional level. And the caring type persona are about 25% of the population. The last type of persona is the aggressive type of persona. So they're always asking, what's in it for me? Great. You have the large number of customers, but what's in it for me? How can you help me? They're about 5 to 7% of the population. So your challenge is to think about on a single page, well, how do I appeal to these different types of personas? Because appealing to a caring type persona is a lot different than appealing to an aggressive, than spontaneous, than logical.
So are these? There has to be some overlap here, or I wrote down the numbers wrong. But it looks like this adds up to more than 100%.
So 45% for the logicals,
Yep.
and 30 to 35. Yeah, I mean, the numbers are not exact.
Okay, cool. So, I was just
yeah.
thinking, it's a little bit over 100%. So I was like, there's overlap. And I imagine there is probably, some people are spontaneous, but they're also caring, and some people are probably logical, but mostly aggressive in the way they do it. So I'd imagine there's some overlap in it. But
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So and when you had said about the caring type, looking at the About Us, I was like, well, they can't just be 25% being the only people who go to About Us, because it's one of the most trafficked pages usually. But I'd imagine the logical probably also go there. So okay,
Definitely.
sorry, I'm overthinking this.
The spontaneous probably would not go to the About Us page. Maybe he's a lot more concerned with how fast can you deliver, on the service, and what kind of results, are you going to give me, and how fast are these results are going to be there. That's also the same questions that the aggressive is going to ask. Okay, so what kind of increase in my sales, or how fast can I get this item, and how fast can I enjoy it? So
Yep.
They're asking different types of questions.
Got it. Makes sense. Okay, cool. So got the personas: spontaneous, logical, caring, and aggressive.
Very good. The next element that's within the visitor-centric elements is what we call the buying stage, and we talked about this. So not everybody's ready to buy. Some people are in the action stage, some people are early in the funnel, and your website needs to appeal to those visitors coming at different buying stages. Now think about this. And this is how we do conversion optimization. You start thinking about, so there is the spontaneous type persona who are still early in the funnel. But I also have the caring type persona who might be late in the funnel, in the action stage. Well, how do I appeal to those? And that's where the complexity of conversion optimization can get a little complex. But it's really very beautiful when you start thinking about all these different models and appealing to those different personas coming at different buying stages.
That all makes sense.
Last element of the visitor-centric elements is what we call the complexity of the sale. So some items are really easy to sell online, others are not so easy. And I always give two examples. We had one e-commerce client that sold t-shirts online, average order value about $15. It's a very quick purchase, people don't think about it. And we also had a client who sold furniture online. Average order value, $2,000. And if you place an order with them, it takes 6 weeks to deliver, and you cannot return the item. So it's a fairly complex sale. I remember when they first signed up with us, I was talking to the owner, his name is Lee, and he looked at me, he's like, "You buy furniture online?" And I looked at him and I told him, to be honest with you, I go down to a regular furniture store, I sit on the couch or I lay down on the bed, the mattress, and I cannot make up my mind. Now you're telling me I need to buy something for $2,000 and receive it in 6 weeks, and if I don't like it, I cannot return it? So it's a bit difficult to sell online. So you want to think about your website and how complex it is to sell online. And the more complicated the sale is, the more you have to invest in your website in persuading your visitors.
Got it. Would you say that price is one of the biggest factors in that conversation? So let's say that, for that example, let's say that the shirt was something you couldn't return, but it was $15, and the furniture is something you can't, and they both take 6 weeks to deliver. I still imagine that the shirt is going to be a much easier sale, even if it takes 6 weeks, and if you don't like it and it doesn't fit, you can't return it because it's only $15.
So price is one of the elements of the complexity of the sale, but there's the value that the visitor is getting, the investments, whether it's the emotional investment, the time investment, the engagement that the visitor has to put in purchasing an item. Think of if you're selling, let's say you're a psychologist, this is a good example, or you're a lawyer. Does it make sense to sell your services online? No, you're just trying to capture a lead. There are some companies that actually try to sell psychiatrists services online. Some succeeded, some did not succeed because people are not programmed to sit on on a Skype session with a psychiatrist or with a lawyer. So different types of sales, different environments, and we have to be able to think about the mindset that the visitor will have when they are purchasing our service.
So this means that not just and I like the way that you've framed these two sides of it, the website centric and the visitor centric, because I think most of the conversation around conversion optimization has been around the website. We think, well, if I just change this on the website or I just do this, and I think not enough lip service has been paid to the fact that the world is changing out there and the way that people buy things is changing. So your example of furniture is a good one because the way people have purchased furniture has remained largely the same for a very long period of time. So we're not programmed to buy our furniture online, and therefore it's a more complex buying decision. So no matter how much trust, reduction of FUD, incentives, etc. You're going to need more of that to overcome that complexity of the buying journey for them.
Definitely. You have, all these elements interact with each other. And when you talk about conversion optimization, really what you're talking about is really understanding the mindset of the visitor. So we're getting into the heads of our visitors, and maybe all 10 of them, or all 1,000 of them, or all million of them, correct? And we're trying to say, okay, so what information do my visitors need? So I need to anticipate that information. And then I start thinking, with all the complexity around human behavior, how do I present that information to them when they need it at the right time and in the right design, the right copy? When you're able to get to that, when you're able really to think about your visitors and walk a mile in your visitors' shoes and your customers' shoes, that's when you start really on that journey of conversion optimization.
Wow. One, just thank you for taking us through all of that, because I know for certain that now when I say conversion optimization to somebody, whether they be a prospect or a friend or anybody, and they do that thing like my dog does where she tilts her head and looks at me quizzically, like I said, treat, I can now send them this episode and say, if you're confused about how conversion optimization works, we just had an episode that breaks it down piece by piece. So thank you for coming onto the show and breaking this down and explaining it. And then two, thank you for all the time and thought you've put into actually developing these frameworks and putting them into a way that we can understand so that we can better make decisions rather than thinking about what color the button should be and whether or not you should change the words, because really those are in service of these other components that you've laid out. So thank you for both of those things.
Thank you for having me. I mean, it's always awesome. That's why I tell my partner Ayat, I'm like, it's always awesome to be listening to a podcast and then to be a guest on it. So
yeah, well, it's great to have you on, and for everybody listening, you have to understand this is a huge get for the podcast, and for you to invest the time in listening to what Khalid had to say today. I mean, it's just, thank you again for coming on. So for all those out there that are listening, tell them where they can go to be social with you, to learn more about you. And I'll put all of this stuff in the show notes so that they can follow up with you and learn more about what you're doing and learn more about how what you do can help them in their own business.
Very good. So they can definitely visit our website. It's www.invest, I-M-V-E-S-P as in Paul, investcro.com. So we have a fairly active blog, and we do some very lengthy, detailed posts. You're talking 3,000-4,000 words where we're explaining lots of these concepts, giving a lot of examples. I'm also on social networks, mainly Twitter. My first name, Khalid, Khalid H, Khalid H. And I'm also active on LinkedIn. So any of those, either website, LinkedIn, or Twitter, people can find me.
Awesome. I'll put all of that in the show notes, and that will be that. If there's any other resources after we jump off this call that you want to add to it, I'll be sure to put those in the show notes as well. So for everybody out there that has been listening to this, I hope you got a tremendous amount out of it. And you know what? Even if you didn't, I did. So I'm going to be keeping so much from this episode and probably going back and re-listening to it myself. So Khalid, thank you so much for coming on the show. I think I'd love to have you back in the future if you'd love to come on and maybe
Definitely.
break down my site. We didn't even get to talk about my site, but I'd love to chat with you more about that in the future and have you back.
Would love to come back again.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening. Come back for the next one. Take care.
You've been listening to the True Voice Media Podcast, and you made it all the way to the end of the episode. I'm proud of you. But now that you're here, this is what we're going to need you to do. First of all, head on over to your favorite podcast platform and give us a rating. If you don't know where to start, go to truevoicemedia.com/feedback. Next, if you're not yet a subscriber, it's time you fix that. Head over to truevoicemedia.com/podcast to subscribe by iTunes, Stitcher, or email. If you really want to show us some love, visit our partners and sponsors who help make this show possible. I know the show feels free, but trust me, it's not. I sure ain't done publishing these episodes, so I sure hope you're not done listening. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.